Hey everyone, it's Imran. How you doing? Now, I want to talk about something which can be considered quite a problem for people in understanding sections, columns, and the elements within, especially when they're working with margins and paddings. And it's a common thing that I see on a lot of forums, so let's just go over it really quickly right now. In a nutshell, everything within Elementor works within sections and columns. You'll have a section on a page, you might have one or more columns. Inside of there you'll have your images, your text, icons, whatever. And then you'll duplicate it and do another section. And then you'll do load more columns. But what can be really important is the placement of the items within there. And also how the sections connect to a section above or the columns within, and we can spend hours and hours talking about it, which we won't. And if you don't understand your section and your column and the difference between a margin and a padding, you could sit there using incorrect values or changing something, thinking it looks right, and then coming a little unstuck when you have to then adjust it for responsiveness, like in a mobile or a tablet view. So let's go into Elementor and just start looking at some basic sections and columns and understanding how they work in relation to the margins and the paddings. Right, so we're back in Elementor, and just again to reiterate the difference between section and columns, think of section like a house, the foundation, the brick walls of the house. The columns will be the rooms within the house, and all of the elements that we have here available to us, that's going to be like the cat hair, the furniture, the TV, etc. within the rooms, within the house. So if I add in a very basic section, okay, we have section 1, it has one column within there, one room. Okay, let's just duplicate that so we now have two rooms within the section. If I go to the grid of the section and I go to the style tab, let's just give it a color of, let's give it a light color, just so we can see it. Okay. If I go to the layout, I'm going to leave it as a boxed, and I'm just going to set it to be about 800, just so we can clearly see it on the screen. I'm going to leave the columns gap as default, and we're going to set the height to be a minimum height of 0. Okay. Now, if I go to the grid, so I'm now editing the section still, and we go to advanced, there we have the options for margin and padding. If I was to add in 100 to the top and bottom simultaneously in the margin, it's now moved it 100 pixels away from the top. So if there was another section above, it would be 100 pixel spacing. And if there is another section below, there will be clear white space of 100 pixels. Let me show you. If I copy this section, and no, let's not copy it. No, yeah, let's copy it. And I paste it, okay? If I go into this section here at the moment, it has pixel spacing of 100 top and bottom. Let's just put this one to be 0 for now. There we go. So what that is saying now is that if I go back into my section 1 and I change it to be 0, let me unlink the values, put that back to 100, sorry. Okay, if I put the bottom to be a 0, you can now see there is no clear daylight between the next section. It's been evaporated because I took it away. If I put in a bottom margin of 50, there is now 50 pixels daylight between section 1 and section 2. I think that makes sense, yeah. Now, what if, though, I want to have them close together, but I'm a little bit worried that when I add contents into here, they're going to be too close together. Okay, so let's add in a text. Let's add in some text here, and we'll leave it as it is. Let's just copy that text and paste it below. There we go. That is now very, very close. But I want my two sections to be like that, for whatever reason, visual purposes, the design. If I now go back into editing that section, rather than touching the margin, okay, what I could do is add some padding. Think of the padding like space within the room. At what point does the room start, for instance? So you got your border of your house, okay, and you got two rooms. But you don't want the furniture in room 1 to be too close to the furniture in room 2. Really bad example. Why would anyone think that? But let's just go with it. What you could do is add some padding. So what you're basically saying is move the sofa 20 centimeters away from the wall, or 20 inches, whatever you want to go for. What you do then is you go to the padding. If I just enter into here 50, okay, it's now added 50 pixels of padding around the top, the right, the bottom and the left. You can see here now the header has got clear space all the way around it, basically. Well, actually, let me re-explain that again. It's done it around within the section. We haven't touched the column, sorry. We are only touching the section. So it's added that 50 in all the way around here. If I was to unlink, I could adjust that and say, okay, we're only going to do about 15 on the right and 15 on the left. Still got 50 on the top and 50 on the bottom. I could then, let's just copy that and paste the style. Let's just get rid of the margin over here, just so we don't have any spacing. So we have 100, section 1 is 100 pixels away from the top. Section 2 is bang up against it. But both of them within both sections have a 50 pixel top and bottom padding. At what point does the room start? Think of these as really thick brick walls separating the rooms out. Okay? That is in essence how the margins and paddings work. But let's go a step further. What if we were to add in an image into column 2? And we will pick an image from our gallery. Sorry, there's loads of photos of me there. We'll just pick this lady here sitting at her table. Now at the moment, this image is okay. It's not too big, but let's pretend it was a bit too close to the text we currently have. And it is close to the text. I think that's pretty fair to say. What if this text now was a lot more complicated? Whoops. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add it in and in and in and in and in like that. There we go. Don't worry about the V there. No, let's get rid of the V. Someone's bound to comment on it. That is now looking very close to the text at the moment. What we could do is go to the column now. We've been working on the section. We're now going to work on the column. If we go to the Advanced tab, okay, I could adjust the start and end point. So if I now go to the right and I put in, say, 60, this column, can you see here when I hover over it, there's a little blue border. It shows me that actually those two columns are currently set to a 50-50 split in terms of the section. However, regardless of the 50-50 split in sizing, column 1 must be 60 pixels away from column 2, the image. So I've created some space. However, we may not decide to use that, because what if, okay, let me just put this as a 0. We could actually do it using the padding instead. So I'm going to unlink the values and it reduces a bit of space. And I'm now just going to say 5 from the top, 5 from the right, 5 from the bottom and 5 from the left. And then I'm going to just adjust the right and I'm going to put 60. We now have currently roughly the same kind of pattern we had before, where column 1, the contents, cannot be closer than 60 pixels from column 2. Likewise, for the image on the right hand side, at the moment it's filling up all of column 2. And if I start to adjust the size of it, it is still going to fill column 2 because it's been set just to look that way. But if I go to the column of column 2 and I go to Advanced, okay, I could actually adjust the start point of that image. So I'm going to go to the margin and I'm going to put in a 50. And it has now moved it 50 pixels away from the left margin. I could even do it to the right hand side. There we go. And what it does is it just adjusts the size and moves it away. And if, for instance, now we have got, say, an inner section within here, and we've got a particular styling, we might want to be very specific over where that image is placed and how it looks. If I get rid of these values and I go down to the padding instead, again I get the same kind of effect. So depends on what your style is or what you're trying to achieve with your design. If you start to do it on both the margin and the padding, you're going to get a double effect going on, which is now 100 pixels. So just be aware of where you're adding it. Okay, there we go. Right, so in simplicity, once you start adding in your sections and your columns, use the margins and the padding to start to define what is the start point and the end point. And I'm just going to end at the moment on this point here, where if I just give this column some padding of 30, let's just go 30, 30, 30 like that. If I now give this a style backing of a white color, like so, okay. If I now click on the section and I go to my margin, if I start to do this, and now I'm using a negative. So rather than doing a plus, again, I just want to show you, look, if I do 100, the starting point is here for the column within the section, but I'm now saying give me 100 pixels spacing, but it's within the section, okay? So remember, if I had done it here, it creates clear white space between section 1 and section 2. Instead, what I've done is go to the column and I've said give me 100 pixels spacing from the start. Again, you could use the padding or you could use the margin. But if we start to use a negative value, let's just put this back to 0. Let's just go for 2 and add in a 0 there. It's now gone, so there's section 2. But it's gone beyond section 2 and it's now hitting into section 1. And this is where you can create an overlap effect. So you might have an image, you know, so let's just put a background image in of, let's just go for this laminate wood over here, like so. This is looking awful now, isn't it? Oh dear. Do not imitate this design. But you could have some text, you could have an image, and then you might want to have some text in a box below, but you want to create an overlap effect between section 1 and section 2. This is where, when you start to use your columns and your margins and your negative values, it can be of really good use. Now, I'm hoping you found that useful. I haven't gone massively into depth, and there is a lot more you can learn about this, but I hope this helps to clarify how you can use the margins and the paddings to your benefit. If you like what you saw, please subscribe, give us a like button, make sure you hit the notification and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Take care.